We're back once again on the Cheap Heat Productions podcast empire. My name is Jack Kilby, no gimmicks guy on the social medias. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is actually going to be part 2 of an interview that my guest and I did a few weeks back that we felt we should pick up again because we barely scratched the surface in terms of this guy's amazing international career that we're gonna get into much more detail this time. Plus, the fans that saw the first interview have sent me some feedback and asked for more elaboration on some areas. So let's get right into it. I'm pleased to welcome once again the man known as Giant Warrior, Big Tiger Steel, and he is the author of the book, The Man Behind the Makeup. I would be talking about Jeff Bearden. Jeff, thanks for coming on again, sir.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be back and stuff. Hopefully we have no technical difficulties this time.
That's what happens. It's all part of the fun and the catch can nature of this broadcast. I guess it would be a good place to start with one of the items of your career that really seemed to catch the interests of the viewers, and that's when you talked about, man, some of the harrowing tales of being a wrestler and running into some real sticky situations with fans, especially in the overseas countries, because you had such a prolific international career. We touched on being stabbed and holding a record for being stabbed. Maybe you could elaborate on that again, plus talk about some of the other major, I guess, incidents that you had, including nearly being blown up on a train.
Yeah, it was an entertaining life, that's for sure. I guess the stuff as far, the first time that I got stabbed by spectators and stuff was in Mexico City. We had just done a world title match with me against Kinnick. Owen Hart was my second. And, we had both wrestled there before and stuff and knew that the fans and stuff could get kind of wild. And they liked to throw like the old peso coins, which were worth nothing and stuff, and hurt like hell when you got hit with one of them. Mm-hmm. I had been hit previously and stuff in the back of the ear and just laid the back of my ear open and stuff with an old peso coin. So when Owen and I were going back, Torreo de Cuatro Caminos and stuff is where the match was and stuff, which is no bullfighting ring. But the steps and stuff going down to the ring were metal. Well, by the time, we got out and all the crazy stuff had started happening, people were throwing beer and would pee in cups and stuff and throw that at us. And, the dirt from the floor and stuff made the steps real slick. So we couldn't really run up the steps. So we had to be careful going up them. So we had both taken chairs and stuff and put them over our heads and, to kind of protect ourselves from things. And as we were going through the crowd and stuff, somebody stabbed me and stuff and cut me both directions, twice. And I ended up taking, I think, 60 stitches internally and externally on that one. And then Dominican Republic and stuff had happened and stuff. The lady took a swipe at me with a straight razor. And thankfully and stuff, I saw it out of the corner of my eye, so I got back in time and stuff, but it still got me. And then came South Africa. South Africa was crazy and stuff. My very first night there and stuff, I caused a riot. And we had to fight our way back to the dressing room through the fans and everything else and stuff. It was just crazy and stuff. I mean, the fans there were very nationalistic. So they love, their baby faces and their local heroes and everything else and stuff. So, I mean, I had a lot of, really hairy nights some nights and stuff, just trying to get back to the dressing room to let the crowds dissipate so I could leave. I got stabbed. Somebody took a swipe at me and stuff during one of the riots on our way back to the dressing room. In the arm and stuff. They cut me pretty good with that. I had another one and stuff, and that was in Durban. In Cape Town and stuff, I had somebody come at me with a knife, and I couldn't really get out of the way. So I had to put my hand up and stuff. They stabbed me in my hand. And then the really crazy one and stuff, I was setting up a match and stuff. We were going to do a series of matches in Durban with me and Gama Singh. And, Gama and stuff was a big hero and stuff in Durban, especially and stuff, because it was a predominantly Indian crowd and stuff there in Durban. And so as we were going, I'd already had my match. Gama had his match. We were trying to set everything up. So I came out to make the challenge. Gama's, trying to, we've just had a big match and stuff. I'm really tired from that. And, I'm not going to wrestle you. You're twice my size. And so as he was leaving and stuff, I hit him in the back once with just a forearm and kicked him once and stuff once he was down. And then the people just started throwing chairs. And it was so bad and stuff that I ended up having to just sit on a chair in the corner and cover my head and everything with another chair and just let them fill the ring up. And I mean, they had filled it completely and stuff. I mean, chairs were a mountain and stuff over the ropes. So I can't move. I can't see anything. So, I'm just under there and stuff. And the lights went out. I guess they were trying to get them to leave. Then I started hearing dogs. So the police came and brought the guard dogs and stuff with them. So after they kind of gotten things settled down a little bit there, they started pulling the chairs off of me. And, once it got, enough to where I could kind of stand up a little bit, and I started helping the guy in the corner that was, pulling the chairs off of me and throwing them to the floor. And I had turned to get a chair from behind me and stuff to throw it, just to throw it to the floor. And when I did, that guy stabbed me. The one that had been pulling the chairs off of me, the guy stabbed me in the chest. And the promoter ended up shooting the guy in the shoulder and stuff and spun him off of ringside. They finally got me to the dressing room and stuff, and the doctor told me and stuff. I was very thankful and stuff that the blade was going vertical instead of horizontal. He said if it had gone horizontal, it had gone between my ribs and got my heart. So, I mean, I got really, really fortunate and stuff there. And so they stitched my chest up and, sent me home. But I wrestled in Durban, I think, 15 times. And I think I had 11 police escorts out of the building afterwards. So, I mean, Durban could be a really rough place. And most of the time, it was when I was wrestling Gama. We had a big feud for a couple of years. And so Durban could be a really rough place to wrestle and stuff. And then, that was the only times that I'd been stabbed by spectators. I mean, I had, several riots and stuff in other places where I had to fight my way back to the dressing room and through the crowds, and, had fans try to come up into the ring. And, one of the Durban matches and stuff, they tried to set the ring on fire. They pulled the canvas out from underneath me. And thankfully and stuff, it had a very small door. So I could pretty well pick off anybody that tried to come in through the door and stuck their head in. I kicked it just as hard as I could and stuff and kicked them back out. And that was the bad thing and stuff when we had the shooting and when I got stabbed in the chest is while I was under those chairs, I started smelling smoke. And I thought they're fixing to burn me alive under this thing. So, yeah, I have a lot of rough memories from Durban, South Africa.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What was the deal about being on the train?
Oh, we had gone to India. And evidently it was some kind of religious fight or something between Muslims and Hindus or Sikhs and Hindus, whatever that was. And, it was myself and Lance Von Erich and Dusty Wolf were in a car. And, we had been playing cribbage, which seems to be the wrestler's favorite game to play. And we saw this guy walk through our cart. And he walked in one end and out the other end. And then a couple of minutes later, stuff the next car and stuff after ours blew up. the guy and stuff had dropped a bomb and stuff, a little pipe bomb and stuff in there and stuff, and had blown that car up. So, I mean, he could have easily just dropped it in our car instead of the next one over.
Wow.
So, I mean, it could have been a lot worse than it was for us.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we were stranded on the side of the tracks and stuff, waiting for somebody to come get us,
Mm-hmm.
you know, after all of that happened and stuff. And I mean, we finally ended up back in, I think it's Mumbai now. It was Bombay at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on our way back from New Delhi. So that could have been a lot worse than what it ended up being.
Mm-hmm. And you know, notwithstanding the fact that especially in your era, you know, wrestlers were legitimate tough guys, and I'm sure you fell into that category as well. Did it ever make you, when you're dealing with all this craziness, did it make you ever think, what the heck am I doing here in this job?
You know, not really. Funny enough and stuff, what really went through my mind and stuff when all that happened and stuff is when I got to the back, it was safe back there and I had a chance to catch my breath and think about it. I'm like, well, I guess I did my job right tonight and stuff, that I pissed that many people off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, it was more of just you know, I got through it, and then it was just you kind of thought about everything that happened, and it was just like, wow, this is crazy and stuff. But I mean, I was, made me feel good in a way and stuff, that I was able to take people to such a point and stuff that they wanted to kill me or hurt me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I hope you got some something extra in your pay envelope for those situations, for doing a job like that. Well done. Aside from that fandom issue and propensity back in the day to violent acting out, so to speak, you wrestled in what, over 25 countries, 30 countries, give or take?
Yeah, something like that.
So, man, what were some of the biggest cultural shocks or surprises you encountered while wrestling internationally?
Well, one and stuff, it was always interesting to me because the styles were always different. You know, wrestling in Mexico under the lucha style and stuff was completely different than working in the States. And that was all completely different stuff of working in Japan. You know, Japan was always a much snugger style and stuff, a lot rougher. And so, I mean, working the different styles and stuff was always, you know, something that was interesting to me. But I mean, the fans and stuff, I can remember going to several foreign countries and stuff where fans would come up and say, I hope you're ready tonight and stuff, because our wrestling here is real. It's not like that fake stuff in the States. You know, so I mean, they took it to heart and really supported their local heroes. And I mean, me being so much bigger than everybody else, and, you know, they really hated me because I was picking on the little guy and the local. So
it's it's definitely something that I think the modern younger fans can't really fathom, just how seriously wrestling was taken at face value, and you know, to a lesser extent in the States, but certainly internationally. In terms of Mexico, you just touched on that. One of the comments that I received and asked for more information thereof, you mentioned that you had a very close bond with Yokozuna, and you were there unfortunately during the time of his passing. Do you have any anecdotes, personal anecdotes about being on the road with Yokozuna? That must have been very difficult for an individual of his size at that point in his career, correct?
Yeah, it was. I mean, he had some difficulties, you know, being able to fit into things, and you know, so that was kind of a thing that he and I shared a little bit, stuff, with me being 7 foot and then him being 550, 600 pounds. You know, we both encountered travel difficulties and stuff because things just weren't big enough for people our size. You know, especially when we were like in the UK and, you know, where he died and stuff. It was tough for us to be able to fit in vans and, you know, buses and things like that stuff, you know. But, you know, I loved Rodney to death. I mean, I still miss him to this day. I had a couple of my first matches in the first year and stuff. I was in wrestling and stuff against him. And then we didn't see each other for, a long time. We weren't really close then and stuff. And then we started working in Mexico. And we would go to Mexico City and stuff and work around there. We'd do 15 days and then we'd be gone for 4 weeks. And then we'd be back for 15 days and 4 weeks. Now, every once in a while, he would come with me to the north. I would work northern Mexico during those 4 weeks that I wasn't in Mexico City. And we did that for 2 or 3 years and stuff. And then we didn't see each other again for a while until I had moved to South Africa. So I was kind of out of touch with everybody. And we got a call one day. I was doing a lot of bodyguarding and stuff out there as well as, the wrestling. And we got a call at our office and stuff asking us if we wanted to work with a bunch of American wrestlers coming in and stuff, that they wanted to put us with security with them. So, of course, my boss and I and stuff were like, of course we'll take that. It's an excuse for me to be able to hang out with all my buddies I hadn't seen in a long time, like Savio Vega from Puerto Rico. And, and he and I had good connections with each other. And they said this one guy and stuff is just so massive and stuff, he can't fit on the bus. So we need somebody to drive him around. And I wasn't really sure at first who it was and stuff. And then I found out and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I get to drive my best friend around for 2 weeks and stuff around South Africa. So, that was a great surprise. And after that, he and I stayed pretty close and talked to each other on a frequent basis. And then he's the one who actually got me on the tour and stuff going to England where he died. And I was one of the ones that helped find him and stuff when he did die. So, and then, after that and stuff, his sister flew in to try to take care of him and stuff. So I stayed with her and, did everything we could through the hotels and the promoter and, trying to get him back home.
Was that a surprise that he passed like that? Because I think there was information that he was losing weight to get another run, so he was in better condition anyway than he was before.
Yeah, he had gotten up to almost 700 pounds. I think a little bit over 700 at one point. And by the time we were together on the thing and stuff, he was trying to be careful and stuff with what he was eating and not drink so much and everything. And Vince had told him that if he got under 600 pounds, he'd bring him back. Well, he was down to 615 at the time, when he died. And so, it was unexpected because, he was getting in better shape. And, he was, working every night. And so, it caught everybody by shock. We had just gotten home the night that he died. We had a long run away from Liverpool where we were based for 5 or 6 days away. So he was tired and stuff, and he'd been up drinking real heavy and stuff the night before. But he was fine at the show. On the bus going home, he didn't give any indications he was feeling bad or there were any kind of issues going on. And we went to the hotel to pick him up. He had to go to the show that night and stuff, and he never came down, which was very unusual for him because he was usually pretty punctual. And we had to go get a key and open the door up and stuff, and he was just looked like he'd just peacefully gone to sleep and stuff. He, had his comforter and sheets pulled up to his chest, and his arms across his chest, and they looked at his hotel record, and he had just watched the pay-per-view, I think, where Rikishi went off the top of the cage.
Mm-hmm.
And, so he was alive until that was over, and I think he called Rikishi afterwards. And then when that happened and stuff, the hotel was nice enough to give, me a room so I could stay there where everything was going on, because I was staying someplace different than he was. But that was, and I was the one that they had to call the family and stuff. So, I mean, I called Alpha and told him, and then eventually talked to Rikishi and told him what had happened.
Yeah, very, very sad. That was the common understanding that he was about to get another shot in New York. Speaking of North America and especially the U.S., in '92, I wanted to ask you about your couple of shots with Global Wrestling out of Texas,
Right.
and the Sportatorium. How did that come together? And was there a plan for you to do more with that upstart company that I guess had national TV at the time?
We had just started. We did talk about doing some stuff with me on coming in on a more regular basis, but I was basically coming in on my way to Mexico. So when I was, going into Mexico and stuff, I get in on a Saturday night, and so I would leave early and go to Global on Friday, and then fly to Mexico City on Saturday and to start on Sunday. So that was kind of how I ended. Bull Payne and stuff was the one who got me in with Global to do those, and I had a couple of matches there, and everything went good. And so we had talked about maybe me doing more shots, but I was still working Puerto Rico and stuff 5 nights a week. So I mean, it was just one of those things that ended up not panning out, and that's wrestling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Were you was Joe Pedicino at the helm at that time, or had he moved on?
Joe was, and then I think Bruce Pritchard had come in doing some crazy karate kind of gimmick and stuff after he left WWE from doing the Brother Love thing, and he's a different person, so
mm-hmm.
we didn't really click very well.
Mm-hmm.
But Pedicino and stuff was good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who I'd originally talked to and stuff. And then I talked to Pritchard for a little bit, and then things just kind of dried up.
Do you think Pritchard, because I think I may have touched on this in our first interview, but during that time frame, you were, almost tailor-made for WWF, given their, booking and love of giants, a big man territory. Was he a factor ever reaching out to you to get a shot up there, or how did that happen?
I actually went in and had a shot and stuff with them, and had talked to Sergeant Slaughter about it and stuff, and didn't have a great tryout match at first. The guy, for my size to get over, I need a bumper. And I didn't really have the guy that I worked with and stuff, didn't really like to take a lot of big bumps and things like that and stuff. So, I mean, my match was kind of flat. And then I moved to South Africa about 3 months later. And I just kind of dropped off of their radar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting situation. It's almost really hard to fathom why you weren't tapped to come in and say work against the Undertaker and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, look, they brought in Giant Gonzalez, so I would have thought you would have been given your work being no disrespect to the late George, but your work was head and shoulders above his. So
right. And I would have loved to have worked with Undertaker and stuff, because Undertaker and I actually played college basketball against each other.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I knew him from college. And then I went into Memphis to do this crazy little gimmick and stuff of the zombie. And at that time and stuff, one of their big baby faces was Freddy Krueger. So
Gilbert?
Tommy.
Oh, okay.
The dad. So that was strange. And I mean, that wasn't anywhere near the way I worked or anything else trying to do that gimmick. And I was there for 2 weeks, and that first night I'd asked around stuff, is there a cheap place to stay and stuff? So I had a place to stay. And Mark had come up and said, well, if you don't mind sleeping on the couch, you can sleep on my couch and stay with me, and I won't charge you anything. So we got up the next morning. Mark came out of his room and he had on a pair of Texas Wesleyan sweatpants. And I looked at that and I'm like, did you go to school there? And he said, yeah, I played basketball there. And then it clicked for both of us. It's like, wait a minute. 'Cause I mean, my gosh, I was a basketball player. I was 220 pounds, so I was tall and skinny. And he was just getting started in Memphis doing that Master of Pain gimmick, I think was what he was doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we got to connect, and then we rode around the circuit and stuff together every night and stuff. So I would have loved to get a chance to have wrestled against him.
And you didn't stay in Memphis because of the atrocious pay, I take it?
Well, the pay wasn't good, but that gimmick was it just had a short shelf life. It was really just to make Freddy Krueger more believable as a baby face, I guess.
Was that a Lawler deal?
Yes.
Loved his cartoon
I was
character.
in a rubber
right?
Halloween mask and a big robe and everything else. And the funny thing is, and I said something to Undertaker that he should owe me royalties, because they were bringing me out to the ring and stuff in a casket.
Oh, wow.
And, they would drive a hearse down to the ring and stuff, and then they'd bring me out in the casket. And then I had a manager called the Undertaker. So
that's gimmick infringement.
Which was a legitimate Undertaker in town.
Oh, wow.
So it was really kind of funny.
Maybe he took a little bit of that with him to WWF.
I don't know how that gimmick ended up being so similar to what that zombie thing was that I did and stuff. I don't know if he had any, I don't think he had any input in it and stuff. I think that was all Vince's deal. Now, where he got the idea from it and stuff, I don't know. He may have gotten it from Lawler.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
But
it was what it was.
Yeah. What could have been. You really had a record breaking deal in India with India's largest wrestling crowd. I think it was over 75,000 when you teamed with the Barbarian. What was that? What was that experience like?
That was crazy, because the biggest house I'd ever seen when Kinnick and I had our world title match, and there was 26,000 there in Mexico City. But that was so big, there were so many people there, and they packed in so close to the ring. It was hard for us to go outside of the ring to do much. And that's kind of stuff, Barbarian and I do on a regular basis. So, I mean, we had to really contain ourselves to mostly inside the ring and get knocked out and get right back in, because there just wasn't any room to work without running over people. And
no fire code in India.
Huh?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just said there must not have been a fire code there.
They had actually broken down the fence. And so people were piling in without going through the gates and stuff. So, I mean, they just guessed it at 75. Could have been more than that.
Wow.
Because it was one of those big cricket stadiums. I think it was the Indira Gandhi Cricket Stadium in Bombay. And they were actually breaking down fences to get into the show.
Incredible. Very, very dangerous, no doubt. Speaking of, some of the legends that you work with, you've been in the ring with more than a few. I just like to throw a few at you, and either in the ring or associated with, and get your comments and your memories of your experiences with them. What about starting off with a couple of good ones, Dory and Terry Funk?
Well, I ain't grown up with them. I went to school with all their kids. So, and my dad and stuff had known Dory and stuff in high school, they went to different schools, but I mean, they knew each other from high school and stuff. And then my dad was Dory's oldest son's football coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I got to know them from, Terry would send messages down for me, through me and stuff to his nephew, so I got to know them real well and got to talk to them a lot about wrestling. And they left me, they always left me 2 tickets and stuff for the wrestling matches every Thursday night, whether I could make it or not and stuff. I had 2 tickets there, because it's hard for me to do it during basketball season.
Mm-hmm.
And, so yeah, they were great, took great care of me and stuff. Dory trained me, him and Dick Murdoch. Dory was living in Charlotte at the time. I called Terry when I got through playing professional basketball in Belgium. I had called Terry when I got home and stuff, and they had told me when I was in high school that they would teach me how to wrestle if I got a college degree. So Terry talked to me for a little bit, and he said, "Well, let me get back to you tomorrow." Well, I had no idea and stuff. He called Dory, and then Dory called my dad to find out whether I'd gotten a degree or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a call the next day and stuff. And Terry said, "Well, go out to see Dory in Charlotte." I think he was working as the booker, or he just finished booking in Charlotte. And so he trained me and stuff. And then he moved to Florida, and we weren't through training by any means. And, I'd known Murdoch and stuff from the wrestling in Amarillo. And so Dickie took over and stuff and finished my training up. And then my first matches and stuff were actually with Crockett.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dusty didn't use me very much because, I mean, I was young, green, and they had plenty of people on their roster to do A, B, and C shows.
Mm-hmm.
So...
In terms of legends in Japan, you worked with these guys a couple of times, Steve Williams and Terry Gordy.
Oh God, they were a blessing for me to work with. I mean, they were really good to me and stuff, especially Gordy. Gordy took good care of me and tried to teach me stuff throughout the match. And Doc, I couldn't believe how strong Doc was. My partner pissed him off one night and he tagged out. And as I came in, and Doc got me up and over his head and tossed me and stuff before I knew what was going on.
Wow.
And I was 295, 300 or so then. And he threw me around like a rag doll.
Mm-hmm.
But, they always took care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out with them a couple of nights and stuff. And, really good guys and stuff. I really enjoyed them.
Mm-hmm. Dynamite Kid.
Tommy was something else and stuff. I mean, he cracked my cheekbone and stuff on that diving headbutt that he does off the top rope. And, always a ribber. And I'm, me being the first time over to Japan and everything, I had just gotten one of the Ribera Steakhouse jackets. So, I mean, I was as proud as I could be of it. Well, I guess when I was sitting in front of Tommy and stuff, so he drew a little face and stuff on my cow head on it. But thankfully, stuff, I wore makeup, so I just painted over it. And after that, it kind of changed our dynamic a little bit. He was a little friendlier with me. I didn't say anything. I didn't bitch about it. I just painted over it and stuff and went on like that's the way it's supposed to be. But, I only got to work with him once. But, he was easy to work with except for just missing that headbutt.
Mm-hmm. Abdul the Butcher.
Oh, I love Abby. Abby was really what made me in Puerto Rico. First time I worked with Abby, I knew and stuff, you're working with Abby, you're going to bleed. So I was getting set up for that and stuff, and he stopped me. He said, "No, put it away." And so we did our DQ thing and stuff with it and fought around the baseball stadium. And that really got me over with the people and stuff, that I was one of the few people that had ever wrestled Abby, especially on a big show, that didn't bleed. So, and then we worked with each other 2 or 3 other times, and in Puerto Rico and stuff. Had great matches. Worked with him a couple of times in Japan. So yeah, I love Abby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I hate to hear that his health and stuff is as bad as it is these days.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. He seems to be in and out of the hospital. Hopefully, kicks out. Scott Hall.
Scott was another one and stuff that I really got along with well. Scott was a little bit on the snug side. Gave me a concussion one night hitting me with a chair. But other than that, I mean, we had good matches. They were good and solid. You know, they were a little bit snug. But that's fine and stuff. I mean, I was a little snug too. So, you know, Scott was, you know, we're getting ready to work a big angle and stuff. And like happens to so many guys and stuff in Puerto Rico back then, they messed him over with a payday. Same thing with Abdullah and stuff. We were supposed to be doing a big angle and stuff when we first started. They were going to set his tag team partner up in Japan and my tag team partner up in Japan and stuff. So we were going to work together in Puerto Rico and then go to the tag tournament, you know, in Japan. So, but they messed him up on a payday and he didn't come back.
Yeah, unfortunate. Crush and smash of Demolition, of course, Brian Adams, the late Brian Adams, and Barry Darso.
Great guys, easy guys to work with and stuff, and you know, took really good care of me. I had Savio Vega as my tag team partner when he was doing TNT, and we got such a pop from the fans, really much bigger than what Carlos got that night, what Invader got that night, and their kind of jealousy and pettiness over some stuff, they never put us together as a tag team again. You know, because both of us wore makeup and, you know, we really worked good together and stuff. And they never let us tag it together again.
So wrestling when they leave money on the table like that. What about Earthquake John Tenta?
John was a great guy to work with. Nice and easy and stuff. Moved well. Took care of me. Taught me a lot of stuff when we worked together. So yeah, I mean, it was always a pleasure and stuff the nights that I worked with him.
You mentioned one of Ricky Vaughn, Lance Von Erich, but your experience with the Von Erichs that you did work with in general.
I never got to work against the Von Erichs. I knew them when I was in high school. So, I mean, I used to always give them rides to their hotel from high school. Got along great with David and Kerry. You know, they always took good care of me and, you know, always very appreciative, you know, of me taking them, pick up food and take them back to their hotels after the matches and everything else. Kevin, not so much. He wasn't just super friendly. You know, so I mean, I spend more time and stuff talking to Kerry and David.
Mm-hmm. Did you have much to do with the late great Bruiser Brody as well?
Only taking him to the hotel one night. Nice guy, was very respectful with me too and stuff. You know, appreciative for me taking him to the hotel and giving him a ride. And, you know, he's somebody that I would have loved to work with. If there was anybody that I didn't get to work with that I wished I had, Brody would have been the one. Because a lot of my style, when I got more experienced and, you know, had more free run of everything and stuff, was closer to his style of wrestling. You know, I wasn't a big technical wrestler like Dory and stuff. I was more of a brawler and stuff like Brody. So, you know, I would have loved to have worked with him. I speak to his wife and stuff, and I see her at conventions and things like that from time to time. Barbara's a super nice lady, and I'm always happy to see her.
Yeah, that would have been a hell of a hoss fight. Did what happened to him taint your experience at all in Puerto Rico?
I know when I first got there, I watched Jose unpack his bag every night. I wanted to see what he had in that thing. So I stayed within eyesight and stuff of him when he was getting dressed and opening his bag up and everything else. So I was a little nervous on that one and stuff. But I mean, you know, at that time and stuff, I was so young and so green, I needed to go somewhere for experience. And Puerto Rico really started off for me as just a place to kind of learn from Carlos and stuff, before the tag tournament. And then after the tag tournament and stuff, working with all those guys and stuff that I worked with in that tournament and stuff, Joel Deaton and Dick Slater and, the Funks and Baba and Andre, those are all guys and stuff I learned from. And I got back to Puerto Rico, and my first match was against Barbarian, and it was just like something clicked. That tournament, all that being nervous and unsure of myself and everything else. After that tournament, I got back to Puerto Rico and stuff, and I was ready to go.
Mm-hmm. As I mentioned at the top, you wrote a book, The Man Behind the Makeup, which details your life in and out of the ring. What was the motivation for you to write it, and what did you hope readers that consume the book would take away from it?
I think it's like a lot of wrestlers and a lot of people and stuff that do books and things like that. You hear from fans and other wrestlers and stuff, and you talk about stories like, well, you should write a book. Well, I have a ghostwriting company. So, I mean, it makes sense and stuff for me to do it and stuff. So, I mean, I can use one of my ghostwriters to write the story. So it's really an easier process for me than it probably is for some people, being able to do that. And I just wanted to entertain people and, hope they found something in it that was entertaining and it answered the questions and stuff for some of these people and stuff. Well, what was it like to be a professional wrestler? And, well, who'd you meet? What'd you do? And so read the book.
Yeah, and very, very good reviews, by the way. Fans definitely recommend. The Man is an extremely interesting story. Would recommend that you pick it up. I got a fan question about, it seems the bigger you are, the harder wrestling is on your body. What would you characterize as your most traumatic injury, and how did you overcome injuries when you're working that much overseas, etc.?
Sometimes you just got to work through, the pain and stuff from an injury or things like that. And truthfully and stuff, the worst for me and stuff came after my wrestling career, because now I suffer from CTE. Which is from all the chair shots and wrestling in the 80s and 90s and stuff was something completely different, because I mean we took full-blown chair shots to the head with no protection, no putting your hand, I never put my hand up and stuff to get hit in the head with a chair, going through the tables and going backwards over the ropes to the floor and landing hard. And I didn't realize until I started dealing with my doctors and stuff with the CTE that I thought of just the concussions and the chair shots and, going through tables and things like that was where all that came from. But they said, no, he said, think about this. He said, every time you do something, you move your brain. If they shoot you to the turnbuckle, I hit turnbuckles hard because I was a big guy. But when I did, it moved my brain around. Every time I got suplexed or slammed or, anything, just doing leg drops. When I did stuff, it moved the brain a little bit. Well, over 30 years, it took a toll. And now I'm dealing with CTE like a lot of the pro football players and boxers and stuff like that, that have done it for a while and stuff, what they're dealing with. So my biggest injuries and everything have come after the rest, my wrestling career was over.
Do you think it's, I guess, you mentioned how the landscape of pro wrestling was vastly different in the 80s and the 90s. And it also made, that era so special that there's a lot of fans that have lapsed and don't, watch the current product nowadays. What was it about that era that made the product so special? And again, the added physicality being one of them, of course, with these negative spin-offs, but if you had to boil that down, what would that be that made that era so great?
Back then and stuff, you could, until TV and stuff, cable television really started oversaturating wrestling. You didn't see anything but local wrestling. So that's what you knew was what was going on in your local area. So you didn't have the internet that was exposing everything and, all these people throwing in their 2 cents and stuff about what they think wrestling is and what it should be and, everything else and stuff. I remember when I was a kid growing up on Amarillo Wrestling, Dorian Terry Funk and Murdoch and stuff were, the 3 biggest baby faces in Ricky Romero. And I remember the first time I got cable television was able to catch TBS from Atlanta. And there was Terry being a heel. And it was like, wait a minute, that's not what you're like. I know you. So I think once that it started getting exposed on cable, it really started opening eyes up to where it was questioning it a little bit more. Because why is he a good guy here and a bad guy there? And then the internet, then the fans got to be involved with it. It wasn't just watching wrestling from a different territory. It was, listening to people throw in their 2 cents worth on what they think about wrestling. Mm-hmm. So I think that was really where the downfall of wrestling and stuff started, was with cable television, and the internet and stuff just kind of broke it.
Mm-hmm. What, another key difference that we talk about a lot on this channel is, you're a prime example, a giant of a man, amongst the biggest, but the big man phenomenon wrestling in a lot of ways, more so in some territories like Watts or New York, but it's always been traditionally a big man's business. And McMahon had that airport eye test deal. Now you're looking at, a lot of, notwithstanding how great the athletes are, one of the things that the classic fans with the 80s, 90s mindset, can't get over is the fact that they look like average people, and it's lost some of the mystique. Do you share that view? And in your opinion, do you think there's ever going to be that possibility where there's a focus on size again, and would that attract some more of the interest that seems to have been lost?
The thing about it is that people now have come to get used to seeing all the high flying stuff and the flips and the flops and everything else. And I mean, when I was early in my career and stuff, we were trying to make people believe wrestling was real. And I think if you got out there now and stuff and just traded holds and worked a hold and, like we used to do for, 10, 15 minutes and stuff of a match, people would turn it off. They'd leave and stuff because they're not getting to see all the high flying stuff. And the guys now and stuff, I mean, change the head and stuff, and the bodies are all basically the same.
Yeah.
They're a lot more muscled up and everything else and stuff than what they were and stuff when I was working. I mean, you look at a guy like Dick Murdoch. Murdoch didn't have a great body, but nobody could work any better than Murdoch, and he was believable. And now and stuff, it's how can you do these big flips and hit each other on and kick out of it and just pick up where you left off? And that's what you see more these days and stuff. I don't watch a lot of it anymore. I mean, of course, I don't really know a lot of the guys that are working anymore and stuff. A lot of them are guys that I worked with as kids. So, but I think that made it, what made the 70s, 80s, early 90s and stuff more interesting and stuff is you had all different shapes and sizes of wrestlers. They didn't all look the same. Now and stuff, they all look alike. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think that's changed it, and especially with the old school fans. I think that's why the guys and stuff that watch 80s wrestling and 90s wrestling, early 90s wrestling and stuff don't like the new stuff because it's just, it's more theatrical and stuff with acrobatics in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean there's exceptions to every rule. There's some tremendous independents out there that are trying to I guess go back to a more traditional sort of product. But when you watch on those odd occasions that you watch the current product, do you have that sense that this has little to no resemblance to what I did? It seems to me to be more of a TV product, and that's that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. Yeah, I mean, it's just a completely different creature now and stuff than what it was that we were doing back then. And like you said, now and stuff, there's so much stuff with the independents and stuff out there. They didn't have the independents and stuff in the 70s and 80s. You had the small territories. Now and stuff, if you've got the money to buy a ring and got some buddies and stuff that want to watch television and think they know what they're doing, that kind of stuff's out there all over the place now. There's a lot more people in wrestling and stuff that should be outside the ring instead of inside the ring. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference and stuff. You kind of had to be vetted and somebody had to stand up for you and give you that opportunity, hey, give him a chance. That, now I've paid my couple of $1,000s to go to some wrestling school by God knows who's doing the teaching. And now they consider themselves professional wrestlers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the business was much more protected back in the day, for sure.
Very much so.
Without a doubt. If you had to, look back on your career and your body of work, what and this is always a difficult question, but what would you consider your most proud accomplishment or the highlight of your career? Maybe the same, maybe different.
Like I said, in a way and stuff, I took pride in the fact that I was able to take fans to the point that they wanted to riot. That I can make people believe it to that point. That was one of the things that I considered some of my best work, I guess, and stuff, was being able to do that with people. Mm. Because I mean, I could have gotten out there and traded holds with anybody because Dory taught me all that stuff. I mean, I remember getting into it a little bit with Mil Mascaras and stuff on a Mexican show. And he's like, well, I was trying to get you to trade holds with me. And so I'm like, that's not my gimmick. He said, well, you were supposed to be trained by one of the best scientific wrestlers in the world. And I said, yeah. And he taught me how to work my gimmick. My gimmick was not get out there and stuff and trade holds for 15 minutes with people. As big as I was kind of like Brody and stuff. I could do it, but I mean, it was more believable and stuff for me to punch and to kick and to, beat people up and do big power moves and things like that. That was my style. So I mean, you want to try to get out there and trade holds with me, I'll do a couple with you and stuff, but then I'd cut you off. And it pissed him off that I couldn't do that. Not that I couldn't, it's just that I wouldn't. So that was just what my gimmick was. So I learned how to protect my gimmick.
Did he say he wasn't going to do a job? Did you have that issue with him?
Oh,
too?
Yes. Oh, yes. No job, Mil.
I wonder if he's still wrestling. Yeah, he was up until a couple of years ago, right?
I think he'll do like a couple of times a year kind of thing on something big that they make it. I mean, I worked with Connect most of my time that I was there. Connect, Dos Caras, Fiano 3. Those were the guys and stuff that I worked with probably the most. Negro Casas and stuff was mine and Rodney's partner a lot of the time. An amazing talent. Mm-hmm. But, Connect and stuff, and I clicked because Connect realized and stuff, I'm not out there to be a technical wrestler. So, I mean, we were always able to connect better than I was able to connect with Mil because he just didn't want to sell my power stuff because he thought it would make him look weak. And my God, I'm a foot taller than you are, and 120 or 30 pounds heavier, and you don't want to sell for me? He did his big cross body and stuff one night and stuff after he wouldn't sell stuff for me and stuff. So I just caught him. I didn't go down. I just caught him and slammed him.
Awesome.
So it was what it was.
Before we shut the interview down, I wanted to ask you about, having made such a mark in Mexico. Lucha seems to be really on an uptake in popularity right now that it really hasn't up. And I mean, the 90s had several bursts of mainstream Lucha popularity. But what do you make of WWE buying AAA and running it? Do you think that's going to take Lucha to that next level, or is that a net negative?
I'm not sure on that one and stuff. I'm afraid with them taking it over, they're going to more Americanize it than what it is the traditional Lucha stuff that they've had in the past. That's my big fear of it and stuff, is that they try to make it more Americanized than what they've traditionally grown up watching for decades.
Yeah, and probably some of the critics have said already that it's losing some of the authenticity that it's had. So maybe it's a double-edged sword with increased.
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine that is a huge Lucha fan, and has been for years and years, and have got magazines and masks and posters and mementos and you name it, he's got it. And he said the same thing and stuff. Is it's just getting, it's not what it was. They're kind of bastardizing the Lucha brand.
That's entirely predictable. Jeff, where can the folks grab your book or keep up with any of the other endeavors that you may have going on?
And my book's on Amazon. There's also an audio book for my book. So you can get a physical copy or the audio. Facebook is really the easiest way to get a hold of me and stuff. I have a Jeff Bearden website, jeffbearden.com. And, I'll answer questions and stuff that come across there. So it's not really a wrestling orientated one. It was more when I was doing speaking. But it's, so I'll answer people and stuff on there as well, but probably Facebook is probably the easiest at my Giant Warrior page.
Good stuff. Well, I want to thank you for coming back and undertaking this interview. Certainly didn't disappoint. Glad we were able to get it off without a hitch.
Me too.
The last time was harrowing, but we bounced back great there. And again, I appreciate you coming on the Cheap Heat Productions podcast.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me on and stuff. I really appreciate it.
We'll definitely keep in touch. Fans, that's it for this edition. Make sure you like and subscribe to Cheap Heat Productions, and you won't miss any of this unique and interesting content. For Mr. Jeff Bearden, I'm Jack Kilby. Thanks again for tuning in. Thank you for watching this video. Please give it a like if you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Cheap Heat Productions. Don't forget to hit the notification button and you won't miss any of our upcoming interviews,